I'm going to talk about the existential concept of responsibility by reading a quote from a book I like called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And the quote is this: "If you woke up one day and there was a newborn baby on your doorstep, it would not be your fault that the baby was put there, but the baby would now be your responsibility." And I love this quote because it's such a good example of how we can sometimes get caught up in fault and responsibility and conflating the two, when what fault is really about is the past. Something has already happened. And responsibility is about the present and future. What am I going to do now? Right? And sometimes we can get sucked into the idea that whoever is at fault should have responsibility. And I want to be clear that sometimes there's a legal truth to that, right? And sometimes there's a justice-oriented truth to that. We live in a society that is social in nature, and we want people to take responsibility for their harmful actions so that we can all be safe. And that's reasonable and fair, I think. But what can sometimes happen is we feel a sense of entitlement to the person at fault fixing the situation. And again, entitlement I see as a neutral word. There's a healthy, positive entitlement that says, I matter and I don't want to be treated in certain harmful ways. That's good, right? But sometimes it can cross a line where we feel entitled to that person completely taking responsibility. And the problem with this is that we're essentially handing all of our power, all of the power to make the situation better, to someone who we've just acknowledged has harmed us. In other words, someone who has clearly demonstrated they were not responsible for our well-being. We are now giving them all the power to affect our well-being. So in that way, I see responsibility. It's not at all about fault. It's not about letting people off the hook. It's purely about acknowledging that I am likely the most effective person to take responsibility for my own situation.